Hey, welcome back to another episode of Raised on the Radio, a solo episode. I'm not even sure what number we're at right now, and I don't care. But this is a solo episode. My colleague, counterpart, homie, whatever you want to call him, he's taken his small child into the woods to chase bears and bobcats for some reason. For some reason, that's what he's doing right now. So I'm knocking out this episode by myself. Was going to book a few guests, but then I thought, you know what? Let me give this a shot. Let me give a solo show a go. We'll see what happens. we'll see what happens. I'm being a hypocrite though, because I did actually, when my son was a small child, still is a small child, but smaller, I took him to the same mountains that Colt is at. So I shouldn't be such a hypocrite. I did take my son to the same place. Nonetheless, have a good trip, dude. We'll see you when you get back. We'll see him when he gets back. So anyway, this is Raised on the Radio. Thank you all for tuning in. I reached out on social media and I asked you, the listeners, you, the audience, to give me some topics, ask me some questions, leave some comments, leave some complaints, call me a douchebag, whatever you wanted to do, so I could talk about it. One of the first ones I got, which is music related, and thankfully for that, this is a music show. We'll throw that in air quotes there. But this is from Zach Risenhoover. Forgive me for getting your name wrong, dude, but thank you for reaching out. Zach said this. He said, "What are your thoughts on the When We Were Young festival and Tom DeLonge coming back to Blink-182? Are they doing them for the right reason? And how do you feel about the overall trend of nostalgia selling big in pop culture right now?" Well, all of those kind of go hand in hand, but let's start with When We Were Young. You know, when the first festival, because they just rebooked, they rebooked the festival for a second time. So they're going to have When We Were Young round two. When the first one got released, we talked about it quite a bit on this show. When it first got announced, it just looked to be like a loaded lineup, and there were a lot of conspiracy theories going around online about how it was bullshit, and some of the bands didn't know that they were booked, and some of the bands were talking about they weren't necessarily going to be paid the same way they always are, so on and so forth. Then I had our good friend Al Coretta on the show, and we discussed it again, and we talked about it further. And both Al and I discussed the festival life because both of us have played festivals, big and small, at the very, very bottom level of the festival. And the festival was going to work. The logistics behind it were going to work. The problem is it was a nostalgia festival. And because it, tugged at the nostalgia strings, if you will, for so many people didn't want to believe that it was true. People didn't want to believe that, wow, they actually did this. They put this together, and they're allowing me to go back and see and listen to all of the bands that I loved when I was a teenager, a young adult, middle-aged 20s, whatever, middle 20s, whatever. So I think just the very idea that they put it together, and then what they were charging, and I don't think what they were charging was outrageous by any means. We'll get into that when we talk about what Blink-182 is charging for their reunion tour. But I think it was just, for some people, it was just too good to be true. So they had to question it. And that's just the age we live in now. As much as we love nostalgia and as much as we love to have a prepackaged idea or something with a bow on it that really speaks to us and really kind of is something that we like, in the age of the internet, in the age of social media, in the age that we are now, we question everything. Or we just like to be haters, or we like to talk shit, or we like to just kind of shit on things when we don't really have all the information. I'm guilty of it too. It's not a big deal. It's just it's the age that we're living in. Not a big deal. But as far as this one, the second round, I love it. I think it's a great idea. Obviously the first one sold really well. I still call a conspiracy that they meant to book 3 days. It wasn't just going to be a one-day festival. I think that was the plan all along. And I have some inside information on that as well from one of the bands who is playing the first one. Kind of let me anyway. With this one, it's the same deal. They're going back. They're putting all these bands together, and I think it's going to sell well. And this is what people want to see. As Zach said here in the comments, it's the trend of nostalgia is selling big in pop culture right now, which is 100% true. Why do you think we're seeing so many remakes of movies? Why do you think we're seeing so many movies being reimagined or redone or whatever the case may be? TV shows, same thing. Not only is it selling big, but I think it's giving people the opportunity to say out loud or type, if you will, this is my era. This is the era that I stand by. I don't really stand by the era that we're currently in. This time was better. And it causes this great debate, but it also opens people up to the conversation, and it opens them up to new art, new movies, new music, time periods that they haven't gone back and researched themselves. So the conversation is really what pop culture is. Pop culture is a giant conversation that we're having amongst one another about what is trending right now. It's always been that way, even before trending, the term trending was even a thing, really. So the trend of nostalgia is selling big. I'm not surprised. Nostalgia has always had a place in my heart. I've always loved to go back to different time periods, not just when I was a child, not just when I was a teenager, but it could even be 5 years. Things that happened 5 years ago, you forget. You go, oh, wow, I totally forgot about that. Whether it be a song, whether it be a show you watched, whether it be a movie, whether it be a sports moment, whatever the case may be. Sports moments are big for me. I love going back and reliving those because you forget. I talked about that when we talked about the Redeem Team. That was 2008. That's not that long ago, but I forgot about so many moments that occurred during that time. So, yeah, I love the idea of nostalgia, especially when it comes to music. Let me just say this. I often complain about movies being remade or reimagined, and like I said, if they remake Back to the Future in any way, shape, or form, I'm done with Hollywood. But with music, I love it. I think a lot of these bands will benefit from the younger kids really gaining a chance to see them, or just because they're booked on the festival, go back and listen to some of their records. You look at, like, and I won't use Blink as an example, but I'll use a band, say like Under Oath, for instance. Under Oath being booked on this festival really opens them up to a lot of younger kids who are listening to really bands that Under Oath kind of gave birth to. Now, do they sound the same? Not really. Is the idea the same? Absolutely. So I think it opens them up, and I think those young kids, or those young adults who aren't in the know, can go back and listen to "We're Only Chasing Safety," or they can listen to, what's the second one called? I forget the name. I'm so bad with album titles and song titles. This is why I need Colt. But they can go back and listen to those records and go, oh, wow, now I get why I like what I like right now. That's not for everyone. That's anecdotal, obviously. That doesn't mean that happens for everyone. And it doesn't mean Under Oath is for all of those kids, but it opens them up to potentially a new fan base, which I think is great. So, Zach, to answer your question, I love the trend. Call it a trend, if you will. Like I said, nostalgia has always held a place in my heart, and I always support the idea of going back and revisiting things that make you feel good, make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. I think that's what nostalgia is. As far as pop culture goes, I mean, I always like when something, especially music, enters into pop culture, because it opens up that artist to so many opportunities and so many possibilities. I know that purists and folks who don't want to see their favorite artist become trendy or become top 40 or become pop culture. I understand what that means to you. And believe me, I used to be that way. Believe me. There were bands that I loved that when I saw their shirt in a Hot Topic, I freaked out. It pissed me off. I don't feel that way anymore, because I started playing music and I started playing in bands and I started playing shows and I hit the road and played out of town. And I wanted as many people to know who we were as possible. So the idea of not liking something because it's pop culture or it's trendy, okay, fine. Like I said, I've been there. It's just not the way that I operate anymore. Finn McKenty, the Punk Rock MBA, just did a really cool video on Imagine Dragons, a band that we've talked about on the show. And why are they so hated? It's because they're popular, and the underground, the purists, the pundits, the tastemakers don't want their things to be as popular as Imagine Dragons is. There are millions of people who say that they don't suck. Subjectively speaking, they might suck to you, but there are millions of people who think that they don't. So you're just going to have to deal with it for those Imagine Dragons haters. Now, I'm not a fan necessarily. They have some songs that I can appreciate, and from time to time, if it comes on, all right. Radioactive was a big one. When it came out, I thought that song was cool. I thought when I started watching them play it live on YouTube or with all the instruments on stage, and when they did a collab with Kendrick Lamar, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I'm into this. And also, that song went fucking diamond. That's insane. I think Finn McKenty said, and this is definitely not a stat that I had in my back pocket, so thank you for the information, if you are accurate. I haven't fact-checked this, but Finn McKenty said that there are only 80-something songs in the history of music that have gone diamond. That's fucking nuts. For those of you that don't know, Diamond is 10 million copies sold, which again is nuts. And, they came out when record sales were tanking. This was a totally different thing when sales were tanking. So yeah, I think the nostalgia thing, I think if it bothers some people, it is because it's in pop culture now. I think they wanted nostalgia just to be something that was, again, something close to them or close to their circle of people and their circle of friends or fans or bands that they share a fandom of. And I think once it crosses into pop culture, then they go, okay, wait, this is getting too big for me, which again, I get, just not the way I operate anymore.
I think another thing that is helping nostalgia is the emergence of a platform such as TikTok. TikTok has been huge for older artists being discovered by younger people. And it's really helped with, the idea of nostalgia entering into pop culture. Without TikTok, there's so many kids who don't know who Kate Bush is. Yeah, I know Stranger Things helped, but, without TikTok, there are people who don't know, there are kids who don't know who Fleetwood Mac is, House of Pain, all of these artists that kind of blow up on TikTok because people are using it in the videos. Without that, a lot of these younger people are not exposed to this stuff. They're not going to do their due diligence. They're not going to go back and research. So platforms like that are really helping with this, and I don't see it as a bad thing. I think it's a great way for younger people to discover older artists and help them reemerge into pop culture, onto the charts, into the mainstream, whatever you want to call it. So I think that's huge.
So when we were young, love the idea. And that's not the only festival that has come out that's nostalgia based, if you will. There was Furnace Fest. I believe they're on their second year. I would love to go. It actually this year happened on my birthday, or day before my birthday. And I had my sister reached out to me and was like, "Hey, we should go to this for your birthday." I would love to, but Furnace Fest is, all of the hardcore, punk hardcore, post-hardcore, metalcore bands that were just huge in the, we'll say, early to late 2000s, I guess. Maybe even some of them were before that. Well, yeah, some of them were before that. Nostalgia completely. And if you go on YouTube and look at some of the videos, people are going ape shit like it's 2004. I think it's great for a lot of those bands. And so this, the when we were young isn't the only idea that's being executed properly around the idea of nostalgia. So I think it's great. I'm behind nostalgia 100%, especially when it comes to music bands and festivals. As far as Blink-182 goes, so this is a tricky one, but I mean, well, it's not tricky. For me, it's kind of a non-factor because I'm not a Blink-182 fan necessarily. I've seen them live with the original lineup and with dude from Alkaline. God, his name is escaping. I'm terrible with names apparently too. I've seen both lineups and I enjoy it. It's fun live, but again, I'm not a huge fan necessarily. Can appreciate them. Love what they did for pop punk in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, blowing up the way they did. I love what they did for pop punk. It opened doors for so many other bands that I think without Blink-182 would not have seen the type of commercial success. Now, again, that may not be cool to some people, but people got it. And look, when you get successful commercially the way that Blink did, or the way that New Found Glory saw success, or any of these, Avril Lavigne, for instance, yeah, some people might call her pop, but at the end of the day, that was pop punk, or she was claiming to be, whatever. So I appreciate and respect what they did. And you could say pop punk, but I just say for rock music in general, when they were blowing up the way they were, pop music, boy bands, stuff like that was really ruling the airwaves and was ruling MTV, which was still a thing. And Blink-182 kind of turned that on its head for a little bit. And I think a lot of bands, while Blink-182 wasn't their flavor, I think a lot of the older bands, or a lot of the bands who were struggling to get on MTV or really struggling to find success on the radio, who had previously had success, commercially speaking, I think they really appreciated that Blink-182 perhaps had opened the doors a little bit, even for them. So I think that's huge. Now, as far as Tom DeLonge coming back, and are they doing it for the right reasons? I'll say this: if you haven't seen the millions of videos on the internet about Tom DeLonge and him being completely fucking out of his mind, go find a couple, I guess. Now, again, say what you want about him. These are just internet videos. You can take them with a grain of salt. The split, when he left the band, or when the band split from him in the beginning, I don't exactly know all the reasons. What I do know is that it did create some really cool projects outside of Blink-182, like Plus 44. And I think Angels and Airwaves in the beginning was a really cool band. I think Boxcar Racer had a few really good songs. all of which contained Blink-182 members or had Blink-182 members. It just wasn't the original lineup. Now, this pissed off fans, obviously, but I think, again, it opened those guys up to a new audience. And then it opened up perhaps kids who were listening to bands that kind of sounded like Angels and Airwaves, or perhaps sounded like Plus 44 to those guys. You know, maybe they thought Blink was too commercially successful. But they put out these really cool bands that is a little bit of a different sound than Blink. So I may not be right about that. I could just be guessing there. But anyway, so I don't know why he left the band. What I do know is that for a long time there on the internet, his reputation was that he's just out of his mind. Now, that's fine. We all are. Now, Blink-182 continued to tour, continued to put out music, and it's good. Some of it's good. Again, not the biggest fan, but what I've heard and what I've actually tried to listen to, I think it's good. And so for these guys to get back together, look, I think at the end of the day, whether it's the right reason or the wrong reason, there's supply and demand when it comes to them being back together. People wanted to see that band back together for a long time. They were clamoring for it, and now they have it. I'll say this, whether those guys as a group of people are doing it for the right reasons, I have no idea. I don't know the guys. But what I will say, if Mark and Travis can just shut up and deal with Tom being a little bit out of his mind and chasing aliens every once in a while, fine. If Mark and Tom can deal with middle-aged Travis Barker still doing pouty face every time he's on camera or every time he's in front of a camera, and can deal with the absolute evil and lunacy that comes with the Kardashians, which he's going to bring to the table. You can't escape it. Once you enter into that family and you're a man entering into that family, you've signed a deal with the devil. And you all know it's true. I'm not saying anything. That's not an original thought. You know it's true. You've seen it. They live out in the public. Anyway, if Mark and Tom can deal with that coming out of Travis, they'll be fine. I don't think they have to deal with anything with Mark other than that he just wants to play. You know, I didn't, during the pandemic, I didn't see Tom doing Blink-182 guitar tutorials or Travis doing Blink-182 drum tutorials. Saw Mark in front of the camera a lot playing bass to their songs, saying, "Hey kids, here's how you play it." Maybe the other guys were, maybe I just didn't see them. Maybe I just, that algorithm didn't touch down into my feed. Nonetheless, Mark's also overcoming some health issues, to say the least. That's an understatement. So hopefully they can make it work. So far, so good, I guess. What people are complaining about are the ticket prices. So, I've seen ticket prices, general admission being $1,000, $1,200. Now, look, again, there is supply and demand for this band to reunite and tour. So you got it. Now you're going to have to pay for it. I honestly would never pay $1,000 to see anyone. There could be breaking news tomorrow telling me that Jimi Hendrix has been frozen this entire time and they've brought him back to life. He's going on tour. He's coming to a city near you. I probably wouldn't pay $1,000. That's a lot of money for a concert. Maybe I'd have to think about that more. That was spontaneous. I'd have to think about that more. Or they say Tupac didn't really die. Got shot, didn't really die. He's been living on an island somewhere. He's coming back. $1,000 it'd be a stretch. Nonetheless, supply and demand. So you wanted it, you have it, now you're going to have to pay for it. And, fans have been asking the question of who's to blame for the high ticket prices. Well, it's everyone. It's the promoters, it's Blink, and it's Ticketmaster, whoever you're going through, like something like that. Everyone, they all enter into a contract together and decide how much the tickets are going to be, especially if there is supply and demand. That's the industry. That's the way it is. So are they doing it for the right reasons? I think the reason number one would be do it for the fans. Reason number two would be people have been asking for it. Reason number three would be let's pull it off and make a fuck ton of money, which they're going to do. And let's hope that people want to pay for it. I think at the end of the day, just like the When We Were Young festival, people are going to pay for it. It's Blink. People have wanted it. So the right reasons for them would really just be, hey, can we prove that we can get along and do this for the fans? Do I think that's their number one priority? Probably not. I think their number one priority is cashing in on the idea, which they're going to do. So unfortunately, that's just the way the business works. And that's why that band has the ability to do something like this and charge as much money as they're charging. Supply and demand. Does it make it right? No. Does it make it wrong? Nope. Nope. Because people will pay it. Zach, thank you for the questions. Hopefully that gives you some answers, and hopefully I'd love to know how you feel about it. So leave us in the comments there on the old Facebook. Leave us in the comments what you think about that once this video comes out. Hopefully you're asking about the nostalgia thing because you like it. I can't tell in the tone of your message that you don't like it. But if you don't, believe me, I'm not holding it against you. I understand there are things that are sacred to you and you don't want to see them opened up to a new audience or become so popular that they're commercially viable to everyone. I get that. Again, it's just not the way I think about things anymore. It used to be that way. Like I said, used to be that way, but I'm not. All right, let's move on to something else here. Anna Chapman on Twitter says, are either of you qualified for the student loan debt relief, and are you going to take it? Well, I'm not going to answer for Colt, but myself, yes, I do qualify, but no, I'm not going to take it because I don't want to take tax money from people. No, I'm absolutely going to take it. Interesting why you're asking this. I'm curious, Anna. Maybe respond later. Do you qualify, and are you happy about getting it? Do you not qualify? Are you upset? I do qualify. I'm going to take it. However, let me just say this. My opinion of it is the people who wanted this relief were people who were never going to, majority, the people who were really fighting for this type of relief were people who were never going to use their degrees anyway. And I'll get into that in a minute. I've never been a person who bitched about my student loans. I've always paid them. I was always going to pay them. Going to pay them at my own pace. And that's why I'm confused by a lot of this. You know, I've seen people back and forth online talking about like it's too much. I can't afford them, so on and so forth. I think a lot of you don't know how to work the system correctly. And if you want some tips for a small fee, I'll show you how to work the system, especially if you have all government loans, which I do. And believe me, I have a nut to pay. You know, I have multiple degrees to pay on. So you can work the system. They'll work with you. They'll give you a number that is reasonable. You just have to put in the effort and put in the work to pay them off. So, like I said, that takes me to my original point. I think people who were really, really vocal about this, and I need help, I don't think they were ever going to use their degree and work hard to pay off that debt anyway. I think they entered into a contract and they shouldn't have, because that's what they are. They're loans. It's a contract. You entered into a contract and you said that you would pay that money back. And I think a lot of people did it and they didn't realize what they were doing and they are not prepared to pay it back. So, but as far as like, you know, people have raised the argument like, well, who really pays this money? Because it's not like, you know, the government's giving you $10,000. They're just reducing your debt by $10,000. And then people who pay taxes, which all of us do, are complaining that, well, now I have to pay the taxes on this idiot who didn't want to pay off their student loan. And I get that argument. I understand why that would make you upset. And then people are arguing for, you know, the folks who, what if you just paid off the last check, the last check of your student loan, and now you see that people are getting 10 grand reduced from their amount. You just spent $60,000 to $80,000 paying it off. You've just done it, right? Or what about the folks who decided not to go to college? Let me say this: the person who just paid off their debt and now they see that we're all getting money, I understand why that would make you upset. I don't have an argument for you. You did the right thing. First of all, you got educated, which I think is still incredibly important. And I'm really sick of media personalities, celebrities going out there into the public and using their platforms saying that in essentially devaluing education, which I think is a total crock of shit. Education still works and you still can get educated and you can still use it to your benefit to create a better situation for yourself. I've heard the argument used by some folks that, yeah, in the 60s and 70s, education really worked because it was such a small percentage of people who were making it work. Now everyone feels they can go to college because it affords them a better life later on. And those people aren't prepared to put in the work later. Okay, yeah, I'll agree to that. But there are also people who are using the education to their advantage. There's still people going to school and becoming doctors. There's still people going to school and becoming lawyers. There's still people going to school and becoming engineers, physicists. So the idea that no, everyone's an art student who just goes to fuck off and take classes on the history of Drake music. No, that's not the case. So really, we're all arguing to answer the one real question: who is it the most unfair to? Okay, is it the most unfair to the people who pay taxes, Or is it the most unfair to the folks who have just paid off their debt and now get to see all of these people get some help when they didn't have any help? If I had to pick one, I'm going to go with the person who paid off their debt and now they're watching people who perhaps they were in their graduating class who have fucked around, haven't paid off the debt, and now they get some help. It's unfair to them. But I think we all lose at the end of the day. We all lose because the money has to come from somewhere. We're already in debt. The economy is already in a bad place as it is. So I think at the end of the day, we all lose because it just creates more chaos and more division, politically speaking, about our economy and about who's right, who's wrong, who deserves help, who doesn't deserve help, who doesn't work hard, who doesn't work hard enough, who works the hardest, who deserves the most support from the government, who deserves to pay more taxes than versus who doesn't. So, but to go back to what I was saying, I understand that there are people who take advantage of the student loans and don't ever intend on paying them off. You know, I started at a liberal arts school and then later on finished up a different degree at a state school, two completely different environments as far as the people that I was in class with or was surrounded by. At the liberal arts school, there were a lot of folks who just went there to escape whatever their reality was, whether it was a reality at home, the reality of what their high school experience was like, the reality of what their everyday life was before they got there. They went to school to escape that with no real intent of getting educated or learning something or thinking outside the box or meeting people who think outside the box, making new friends, so on and so forth. They surrounded themselves with people who think just like them. They took classes with those people. They took classes that were aligned with how they already thought or felt about the world, about politics, about religion, about media, about history, so on and so forth. So I felt like it was a giant waste of time to them. Maybe do that for like the first semester. Get comfortable, be around people who are like you. And then from there, learn new things, meet new people, really take advantage of the experience. I was surrounded by a lot of people that didn't do that. Now, again, this is anecdotal. I understand this doesn't happen everywhere for everyone. I'm just telling you my experience with this. I knew that if and when I decided to finish college, which I did, and working on multiple degrees now, I knew that when I decided to do that, A, I was going to work hard at getting the degree, and then B, because I didn't pay for it myself and I didn't have help from anyone other than the student loan process through our fine government, that I was going to pay those loans off. Well, first of all, I don't come from an educated family. Neither one of my parents went to college, but came from a hardworking family, not just my immediate family, but everyone outside of them. Blue collar, you work hard for what you got. I learned at a very young age that I was not going to do manual labor with my hard work to earn my living. I don't. I took a completely different path, but I also worked hard in the process to get my degree. And then with whatever work I'm doing, I work hard at it. I've always moved up. I've always found the next set of responsibilities, the next pay range, whatever you want to call it or however you want to describe it. So I knew that when I signed into a contract with the government to take money from them to help me earn a degree, that I was going to pay it back. Now, again, some of you folks need to learn how to work the system because it can be worked. Again, reach out to me, DM me, email me. I'll show you how to do it. Small fee. You don't have to pay me much, but I'll teach you. I teach you how you can work with the government a little bit, and they will work with you. It's the motherfuckers that just stop paying. You're the ones that are creating this chaos for everyone. Find a way to pay some of it. So, Anna, to answer your question, yes, I do qualify. I don't know if Colt does. Yes, I will take it. But to all those people who hate this process, just know that I have actively been paying off my student loans and will continue to do so. But no, I'm not going to turn down the 10 grand based on principle or your principles. I do know too that there are a lot of people online who are bitching about this, and you do have bios. You do realize in your bio that you never say you went to college, and you do realize that we can research that. For the people out there that are bitching about this and you didn't go to college, I understand you worked hard and you're earning a living some way, and you feel that you shouldn't have to pay for the person who did go to college, but maybe just end the argument there. Don't undervalue education as well, because you're creating more of a problem when you do that. Anyway, Anna, thank you for the question. Again, DM us, leave in the comments, tell us your thoughts on this. Let us know if you're also qualifying for that, and let us know what you're going to do about it, or if you don't like it, we'd love to know your thoughts. All right, moving on here. So this is coming from Zach Gibbons. Did you see Kanye on Drink Champs, and what are your thoughts on everything that's going on with him? Oh boy. Well, we talked about Kanye a little bit on the last episode. It was mainly about the White Lives Matter shirt, and there's so much going on here with him that. So let me just say this: with the White Lives Matter shirt, I said Kanye did that for Kanye. Kanye knows what he's doing. He's good at marketing himself. He knows that when he creates controversy, it benefits him. Now, as far as what he's doing now with the comments on Jewish people and all that, here's what I'll say. I don't like Kanye, first of all. I'm not a fan, never been a fan, never going to be a fan. I don't like his music. I don't like him as a person. I think he's mentally ill. And I think we as a society need to stop giving mentally ill people such a large platform. And in fact, we should find a way to control it or take it away from them. Now, I know that's criminal, what I just said there, because that's what he's accusing Jewish people of doing. And they did, because you're off the fucking rails, dude. Nonetheless, he does have a right to free speech, so I can't take anything away from him, and I never would. But when it comes to his mental health, we need to find a common ground there. With that said, I'll say this, and I'm not, like I said, I can't get too deep into this because it's for me, he is at this point, everything that he's doing when it comes to this stuff, it's politically based, and I think the agenda is political. What I do find interesting is that with him, there are so many conservatives who don't choose to comment on his actions because his political views align with theirs. But yet when a LeBron James comes out and says something, shut up and play, stand up, shut up and dribble. It's like, oh, well, so politically speaking, everyone has to see eye to eye with you in order for them to be able to speak. It's ridiculous. But with Kanye, I think what's dangerous is this, and he has a giant fan base and following on social media. 35 million, I want to say. The amount of Jewish people in the world, or people who identify to be Jewish, is somewhere around 15 million. So I think his influence on the whole idea of what he's saying about Jewish people is problematic to younger folks in the influence he might have over them. And this is why I say that media literacy needs to be taught in elementary school now, because say what you want, yeah, Kanye West is just a celebrity or a musician, a musical artist. I think at this point he's a political figure, and he's in the media because he chooses to go on these politically based media programs. So his reach not only reaches his following, but also that media conglomerate's following as well. And I think that's incredibly dangerous for those young kids. And that's why I say these young kids need to be taught media literacy and how to be media literate. Now, it's one thing to like Kanye for his music, for his fashion, for his shoes, for his celebrity life, being a former member of the Kardashian family. We saw what the devil did to him. It's one thing to like him for that and follow him for that and appreciate him for that. It's another thing to then follow him over to these media programs, again, which are politically based, and just believe everything that he's saying. What these kids really need to do is go, oh, wait, this is a media company. He's going over on Tucker. He's going over on this conservative show, this conservative show. Oh, he bought this conservative-based social media platform. I need to do my research, and I need to find out if my views and my beliefs align the same way theirs do. And I think a lot of his fans would be surprised to find out that no, they don't. And then from there, you need to decide whether you're going to go on this journey with Kanye or not. I think a lot of people wouldn't. Now, influence is influence. Kids are kids. Adolescents are adolescents. Teenagers are teenagers. Young adults are young adults. Adults are adults. They're going to choose to do what they want to do. With Kanye, I think what people really need to pay attention to is how he reacts to the backlash. Okay. He kind of reeled it in on the whole Jewish thing. Once he started talking, he went on Drink Champs. kind of reeled it in. He said it's a jealousy thing. Let me ask you this, kids who like Kanye, conservatives who now love Kanye and love that his views align with you. Do you really want someone who's so weak that he'll go on a podcast or a TV show and talk so openly about how jealous he is of a group of people who perhaps don't have as much influence as he does? Now, I know we're talking about social media, but again, Kanye has 35 million followers to 50 million followers. I can't remember what the number is. Is it really so neat or cool or influential for this guy to talk about his jealousy? Isn't jealousy a sign of weakness to you all? Isn't that the first thing you say when people criticize you? They're just jealous. So this guy openly admits that he's jealous and you praise him for it? It's a little bit confusing. That's what my thoughts are on the guy. Again, we talked about this, and I'm kind of waiting to see what happens after this Drink Champs episode and after he goes on some more shows. Again, I don't care about the guy. He's not on my radar. I understand it's huge to talk about him because he's in the news a lot. And again, he has a strong following. I'm not in it. I don't want to talk about him. I'm not in it for clicks when talking about him. I kind of look at the big picture, such as what programs is he going on? Does the younger portion of his following need to understand what it is they're actually watching? Yeah, that's my biggest issue with it all. And that's where I take issue with it. I come from a media background, so media literacy is huge for me. And I think that when it comes to a guy who has so much power and such a large platform, people need to be tuned into when he's aligning with people just to align with them for his own benefit and for the sake of being in the public eye. Does he really believe that slavery was a hoax? Does he really believe that the Holocaust was a hoax? And I don't even know if he said that. I think he did. Something about the Holocaust. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that a lot of these shows that he's going on, and a lot of these supporters that he has of certain movements, they have publicly said those things. And this isn't hard to fact check. Google it. So I think it's incredibly problematic, again, for his younger audience or his less informed audience to just ignore all of those things and just follow Kanye blindly because they think he's cool or because they feel sorry for him with the whole Kim thing. It goes a lot further than that. Zach, hopefully that answers your question. Again, I a little bit exhausted of Kanye when we do one episode. When we talk 10 minutes on one episode about him, I usually like to take a break for a little bit, but hopefully I gave you enough there. I don't know. We'll see. All right. What I want to do before I get out of here is I want to share a new song from a band that's near and dear to a large portion of our audience. They are from St. Louis. They're called Story of the Year. I don't know if you've heard of them, but you should. You should definitely know who they are, especially if you're from St. Louis, you should be especially proud of this band to keep putting out great music the way they are. So I want to end on their new single called Tear Me to Pieces. Really great song. I'm excited to see what these guys are going to put out with their new record label, their new sort of mindsets. And I feels like they just have a totally new energy, which is exciting. So good dudes, great band, great song. Here it is.
Tear me to pieces and swallow me, 'cause I can't kill all the anxiety. Tear me to pieces.